Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1. Mic check 1 2.
All right, testing. Yeah, we'll get going in a minute here or two if everyone can grab their seats. For all our panelists, we do have seats reserved for you down front if you want to come on down here. All right, well, welcome to the 2024 Sport Management Alumni Symposium. We can cheer for that if you want. We run a tight ship here, so I'm going to speak for 3 minutes and 12 seconds. You ready, Kylie? Okay, very good. My job is I'm simply going to say a couple brief thank yous, a couple logistics. Then we're going to hand it over to our alumni, Dan Saucier. He's going to introduce the panelists. President Piezinski is going to say a few words. And then we're going to roll right into that panel, okay? All right, so first I want to thank the IT department, events department, marketing department, from the website to this microphone. They've done everything. So hats off to those guys. Also, special thank you to Sport Management 363. That's our sport events class. They're organizing and running the event today. They are posting on Instagram. So if you get interviewed, feel free to give them a few words. Also, feel free to check out hashtag Nichols College Sport Management, and you can keep up on the day. Special thanks goes to Heather Bowes. She's our events department person. Maureen Butler, academic affairs, and Beth Gianfrido. Yep, perfect. Thanks to all the faculty and staff who encouraged all of you to come here today and reminded you, so that's great. Thank you to all the students for showing up. Appreciate it. Okay, a big tip of the cap to our advisory board chair and symposium committee chair, Dan Saucier, class of 2012. Thank you, Dan. He flew up from Miami, Florida today to be with us. Last and most importantly, of course, is a big thank you to our alumni and friends. So a big round for those guys. So obviously we can't do this without them, right? I mean, as busy as the students are, right, we're all busy. Nobody has a free day. But they carved a whole day out to come down here and spend time with all of you, right? So I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so that's the thank yous. Sliding right into logistics. Okay, so we're in Daniels, okay? So got the intro, it's moving along well. Kylie, what's my time here? Okay, all right. So we're just gonna stay here for the Celtics panel, right? Then after that panel, two choices. You're going to Fells for the local sports teams panel, or Davis for the apparel and footwear panel. It's all on those sheets you grab coming in. That's up to date. The website is up to date. It's a little bit different than it was a week ago. We had to shuffle some things around. That's the way it goes. But those are your two choices. Then there's a lunch break. You grab another panel. Okay? At 2:45, there's networking in Fells. But don't wait to network. So for example, like our Celtics folks, they have to leave around noon. They're picking up their employees' championship rings today. So we can applaud for that. But if you want to speak to them, right, and their names are on the sheet, you've got that, just hang out after the panel and talk to them. Same thing with the other panels. If you want to grab somebody, there's time built in. You can simply go up after the panel, shake their hand, say thank you, ask them a question. Okay, you don't have to wait till 2:45 to introduce yourselves to someone. All right, believe it or not, that's all I got. So without further ado, class of 2012, Dan Saucier. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Professor Wendry. As he said, thank you to all the students, faculty, everyone that set this event up, all the students for coming here and participating in this, and continuing to look at your professional growth, personal growth, and ultimately kind of your career as you're moving forward. So really appreciate you guys taking the time out and coming out here to hear from all of our experts, all of our alumni, and thank you again. As Brian said, the biggest reason we started this symposium last year, and the reason we're going to continue it is, like I just said, is the professional growth and personal growth of you guys. We really want to continue to look at what the cutting edge jobs are, and not just kind of that in the box thinking that the last 20 years of sports has been. Sports entertainment has truly changed with technology, with forward thinking, innovation, etc. And there's a lot more opportunities out there, and we want you guys to creatively and uniquely think about the ways that you guys can take your skills and put that into action with different positions out there. So take today, again, as you guys meet us, take that opportunity to talk to us about those different opportunities, and really look at it from a different scope. So I'm gonna just go through the list real quick of our alumni, our speakers. If you guys can stand up for me and just shake your hand, I'll read your name, company you're with, your title, and then your year. So we'll start with Mike Benson, Director of Business Intelligence from the Boston Celtics. Zachary Berman, Senior Account Executives from Fanatics, class of 2015. He's not here yet? All right, sorry about that. Andrea Lane Bernard, Global Marketing Manager, Saucony, 2007. And I know she's virtual, so I'm sorry. Brandon Bicknell, class Manager of Merchandising Footwear, Puma, class of 2021, MBA 2022. Paul Cacciatore, VP of Member Experience and Arena Operations at the Boston Celtics, and board member of the Advisory Board for the Sport Management Program. Anna Diakiv, Manager of Corporate Partnerships Activation at the Boston Celtics, class of 2014. Connor Haynes, Director of Ticket Sales at the Worcester Railers, class of 2016. Chris Hirion, Director of Athletics, Marketing, and Fan Experience, College of Holy Cross, class of 2016. I saw him earlier. Oh, he's in the back. Oh, naughty, naughty. Ryan Nesbitt, and Director of Ticket Sales, Woo Sox, class of 2019. Stephen Oliveira, Vice President Marketing, Worcester Woo Sox. I was going to actually say it out. Michael Ritchie, Director of Enrollment, Nichols College, class of 2015. In the back. Alice Mullen-Rusin, President, Swarm Basketball, and GM of Three Step Sports, class of 2013, MBA of 2013. Jessica Vassal, Head of Partnerships, New Balance, class of 2002. And then just quickly, our two student moderators that thank you very much for your help today. Jack Clifford, class of 2025. And Kathy Worthington, class of 2025. Please tell me I said that right, because I didn't double check that with I didn't. Dang. All right. Again, thank you to everyone coming. And please take today, take the information away and interact with us. Ask the questions. Be curious. So I'm going to bring up President Bill Piezinski, and again, appreciate everybody's time.
Thanks, Dan. And let me echo the thanks to all of our guests today, alumni and friends. It is a big part of what brings value to the program at Nichols is your involvement and participation. Just a few short words, but I did have the opportunity recently and responsibility to be a part of the COSMA self-assessment site visit. And meet with the committee that came to do the evaluation for our reaffirmation with the accreditation. And it was a special opportunity for me to understand how unique and special this program is. To hear about its growth and hear from people outside the Nichols community talk about what this group has achieved. To bring such respect and reverence, frankly speaking, from people in the industry, but not of the Nichols community. Thanks in part, pretty much, to a lot of people in this room, it has grown to be what it is. That includes the faculty, it includes the alumni, and it continues to be the largest enrolled program at Nichols College, thanks in part, again, to the people in this room. Many in this room should take pride in it, really with what's happening now, what's been achieved before, and clearly the bright future that this program has, and demonstrated by alone this event, being able to bring together so many from the industry to be with our students. To each of you, I do say a job well done. But today, as we mark this milestone date, it does give us a chance to recognize, among so many that have served this program, the ability to acknowledge maybe someone that even stands above all of you, that with their influence on this program and what they've meant to so many as a part of this program, and that is Professor Dr. Tim Liptrap. Quality over quantity, quantity over quality, it's a natural and expected compromise that we hear often, that can't be achieved. You can't do both. It's not uncommon for us to hear that. Tim Liptrap never thinks like that, ever. Rarely do we come across individuals who can instantly make something better, who consistently leave something better than the way they found it. When you think of a tough task that has to be accomplished, you can't help but always think of Tim first. The sports management program has turned into a hallmark program for this institution. I know Tim would be the first to acknowledge that many have contributed to that growth, but there's no denying his influence on that run. Due in large part to his strategic thinking, his boundless energy, enthusiasm, but most importantly to his unwavering support and devotion to students and his discipline. This program has simultaneously benefited Nichols College, it's benefited the programs and organizations it's partnered with, and it's benefited the industry as a whole. His influence has even led into faculty being drawn to Nichols, highly credentialed, highly accomplished, highly capable, wanting to work here simply because of the reputation of this program and Tim's role in it. All the while, in 2011, he's getting his doctorate degree as well. And if you think he's wearing down, last night around 9:30, he was meeting with entrepreneurial students down at the Den, just stirring up some controversy and chaos like he is perfectly adept at doing, getting them excited about their ideas and how to equip them with the resources to achieve the dreams that they're formulating. It is my privilege to present during this 25th anniversary of the Sport Management Program at Nichols College, the GOAT Award. And as it reads, the GOAT Award presented on the 25th anniversary of the Sports Management Program to Professor Tim Liptrap in recognition of 23 years of extraordinary service and commitment to your students and the college. Your tireless dedication has been instrumental in transforming the Sport Management Program and has shaped the lives of countless students. Nichols College, November 14th, 2024. Dr. Professor Tim Liptrap.
All right. Thank you, President Pyzinski. Thank you to the alumni, This is exciting. Thank you so much. I am very humbled to receive this. Let's start off. You know, I was on my way in, and I was thinking about how did we start this program so many years ago? And I want to, Bill, as you were saying, this is not one person, and this is a whole team of people over the years. And I just want to shout out to some folks. We started this program off with a gentleman by the name, for the older folks, Tom Caffaro. Tom Caffaro and Jack Armstrong, and then we started to hire for our older alums. And Jess, I'm looking at you because you probably had, sorry. You had Joe Williams and Colleen Caldas in class, and some of you had, and Dan, as I come around, you had Joel Cormier in class. Then as we moved along, we ended up with Frank Hendricks, but Alice and I were just talking about the first day that we met back, it was a lunch at Mohegan Sun when we were trying to recruit Professor Mullen to be one of our professors and coaches here. And then it continued on. Bill, I think we've been here 16 years together. And the team from the alumni development happened. And then Liz, I think you were 13 years. And Janet, you've been here much longer than that. This is all part of the program. It starts with those folks who really wanted to make this great. And about 12 years ago, we were sitting at a table, and it was with Paul. You're not an alum, but you were a supporter of ours. And we were able to sit down and say, how can we make this program great? How can we take it to be one of the best programs in the country? How can we make it one of the best programs in New England? And then we started that process. And then we put together our alumni board, and thank you to all our alums who are part of that over the years. And then we continue on with our new and current faculty who have great credentials. I mean, Professor Wendry, I don't know how many times, where is Brian? Brian, there you are. Brian, how many Little League games we sat next to each other and we talked about what this could look like. Charlie Robert, I mean, Charlie came on board and joined us, and we got Shelby, and we got Chris and Dave. And then Mikey, where are you in the back? And you have supported us. And then our partners, all across the boards. And I remember the first day that we brought Anna to one of our partners, and we asked her to translate for us. So I get unique stories about every one of you guys, so I'm not going to even go there. But at the end of the day, it's not about one person. It's about the team, and it's about the dream that we had here at Nichols College, which started back in the late 90s. And it really has become one of the best and biggest programs in the region, and we're nationally recognized. So students, it's about you. That's all this is about, is to get you up and running and getting you ready for the industry. And with the alumni support and our faculty support and the college support, it has been turned into one great 25-year project. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to end there. And thanks for being here today, and I hope you enjoy your presentations. Alumni and our folks that are part of the advisory board, thank you so much. All right, thanks. All right.
All right, so we'll get our Celtics panel up here with our moderator, Dan. So yeah, come on up here.
Check. Check. Good. Okay. All right. Hello again. I just want to give. Where did Tim go? Professor Liptrap. I know he had a deep impact on me. I know had a deep impact on a lot of us and kind of where we are today. So just one more round of applause for Tim for everything he's done. All right, let's get right into it. So I'm just going to have y'all introduce yourselves if you can. If you did not go to Nichols, if you can let us know where you went, what you studied, your career path, and then kind of your current role and some of your responsibilities. So I'm going to start with Anna and let you go.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for coming out bright and early to join us all. My name is Anna. As you've heard, I graduated from Nichols in 2014. I was a double major in sport management and international business. I interned for Paul, which is kind of the whole conversation that you'll hear today, probably how small the world is. After my internship, I went down to Miami and worked with Dan in inside sales for the Miami Marlins. And then Paul brought me back on board for member experience. I've been with the Celtics for 10 years from my member experience position and trans into partnership. So that's where I am now.
I'm going to go quick because I'm the other alumni, and then I'm going to have you guys go. So again, Dan Saucier, graduated 2012. Again, actually interned for Paul and his team as well at the Celtics to data analytics. That's kind of where my love for data and tech and all of that kind of started. So, and then actually went away from sports, worked for waste management and accounting. I double majored in sport management and accounting. So went into that, hated that, and then moved to Miami and worked for the Dolphins first season as ticket sales representative, inside sales, and then moved over to the Marlins. Was there for 5 seasons, a handful of different roles. Got out of the sports world, went into marketing, advertising, et cetera, and ran the South Florida market for that company. And then my current role, I'm director of sales and partnerships for a startup tech company driven global transportation company. So, all right, Mike, we'll let you go.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, Mike Benson. I am not a Nichols alum, but went to UMass Amherst and did study sport management there. So I was actually a sport management, and it's a major called operations and information management, but more or less data analysis as a second major. Did a hodgepodge of different internships, both in sports and out of sports when I was there, but ended up also not in the sports industry. Initially, I was at EY doing more or less like data consulting, and I also wouldn't say I loved it, but got really good experience there, and a job with the Celtics popped up after 2 years of being there, kind of helping start a business intelligence department in the organization. So jumped on there. I've been with the organization for 5 years and lead the business intelligence kind of group now.
Good morning, everyone. Makes me feel old when 2 of you interned for me. Paul Cacciatore. Although I did not go to Nichols, I went to UMass Amherst and graduated in '96. Interned in community relations and public relations for the Celtics in 1995. And then I was hired for a customer service job shortly thereafter in June of '96. So this is my 29th season with the team. Probably the unicorn of the Celtics, I would say. Growing up there, I should say, from a professional level. You'll hear a lot of colleagues today talk about how they bounced around. And I was fortunate enough to be able to hold different jobs within the Celtics, whether it was ticket operations or it was customer service or it was developing a service role during COVID. I ran a lab for all the people that needed to be tested prior to our games. And so I guess being the utility player really helped my career. And I think that's my message with all of you. Just because you might get excited about one thing, you never know where another thing's going to lead you. Just look at Anna, look at Dan, look at Mike. It's about their story and path. And today, I want you to think about that just because you leave here 4 years from now doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up forever. It's about building that path, working hard. Your first step is coming to this event and networking. One other thing I would just mention is getting to know your professors. They are networked unbelievably, and they may be thinking about your strengths and weaknesses a little bit different than you are. And you might say, why did they say this about me? Why am I pursuing this? I want you to listen how we all work together, the 3 of us, this morning. And I think it's really important to understand, winning a championship is the ultimate thing in sports for all of us. And tonight will be very special for us. but it's the people that develop the organization that matters the most. And then when you go to apply for a job, that's what I'm thinking about when I'm trying to hire you. And I'm sure I can see Alice nodding her head because she's thinking the same thing. How does this person provide value to our organization? Think about that today. How can I bring value to either Nichols College or to the employer that you're going to interview with, whether it's an internship or it's a job? Always have that V word in the back of your head, value. So I look forward to today. I hope the discussion is good, and you'll see how we do things at the Celtics, both on and off the court.
Thank you, Paul. And during his intro, he didn't mention, I know Tim mentioned it earlier, but it is wild to think about. In 2011, I think I interned for you, and then 2012, I was graduating, and you guys were talking about and starting, the entire board and everything. So thank you for, your 12 years and everything you've kind of, brought to this. So much appreciated. All right, let's jump right into it. So first question I want to ask, and we'll start with Anna, and we'll go down this line, and we'll do a different order next. How does your, how do you overlap in your day-to-day responsibilities, within, Paul's department, Mike's department, and, kind of how does analytics bring into that? Reason we're asking is just, as you guys know, and as I mentioned earlier, everything is ever changing and quickly changing nowadays, and analytics technology it's in every job. It is what it is. So at the end of the day, how are you overlapping with your responsibilities there, and then how is that impacting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be helpful to start off by explaining kind of what my role is. So on day-to-day, I manage about 10 of our partnerships. On my account list are partners like Dunkin', Gatorade. I have Arbella Insurance, and many others. So what happens is we sign a contract with them that has a list of assets that we have to activate each year. It could be events, it could be hospitality, it could be programs, community programs. So it's a variety of different things based on the partner's needs and what they find valuable to bring to the community or their organization. So with that said, what happens is throughout the year, we go through and fulfill all of these assets. In order to provide examples at the end how these assets are delivering, if it's social or if it's TV, visible signage and such, we look to Mike and his team to provide us with that data. So his department will collect all of it throughout the season and provide us with the numbers such as impressions, video views, the QI media value they're receiving, so the return on investment. So we work very closely throughout the year. Oftentimes it's me nagging him for something that's probably missing or asking why that number is that way, not another way. But all of the work they do is essentially manual. We have technology that does some of the things that we're looking for, but a lot of it is done by him and his team personally. So a lot of hard work and time goes into that. And then with Paul's team, his role has shifted slightly, but in the past, with member experience, they work closely with us planning all the events. So we come together with a partner, we look for the target group in member experience, season ticket members, who we want to target and what events we want to deliver to them. So in my role specifically, I feel like I get to work with all of the departments in the organization, which is really fun. You get to know a lot of different people, you get to know a lot of different processes. So I feel like I'm fortunate to be able to have a little bit of information and ability to work with everyone.
Mike, we'll jump over to you.
Yeah. I guess also a little bit of background on just what we do in the business intelligence department. We kind of view ourselves as like more or less an internal consulting group within the Celtics. And really what we're trying to do is make everyone else better at their job. So putting data in front of people to make more informed decisions, and ultimately trying to just inform the organization and guide them. So we do that with ticket sales, a lot with member experience, with corporate partnerships, both less on the sales side, but definitely on the activation side that Anna sits in, and also community engagement, really more or less every department on the business side of the organization. And I think that kind of plays into how we work together. Like Anna touched on, we have a lot of dashboards and reporting to try and prove here's the value that your partners are getting, but it's also trying to bubble up important pieces of information. So it's is the value we're providing a partner behind last year for some reason? And do we need to look into that? Is there like an asset performance on social media or on the broadcast side that is, underperforming? Can we adjust angles on that? And it's, trying to call out small wins as well. So we send out like a weekly social media report. And if there's a like high performing partner post on there, theoretically you could take that, you could provide it to the partner as like a small win. So that's kind of like really what we're trying to do in the organization, is provide that value, and really just make everyone else better at their jobs. And we kind of assess ourselves on how the business is doing as a whole, and if we're providing that value to them. And then I'm sure Paul will talk about it, but there's been a big emphasis on our individual game buyer fan experience this year. So, as an organization, we have a lot of season ticket members. There's a lot of emphasis that has gone into that group and servicing that group. But, we have a ton of fans that buy on resale, and they come to games or buy on primary, and like looking at the customer experience for them. So that's a big initiative I've worked on with Paul and his team this year, is just trying to spend more time in that area, look at the feedback we're getting from game experience survey responses, and try and improve that experience as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with member experience, because I think that people are probably saying why they call them members. And I think the general term people talk about is, you hear season ticket holder, right? Well, about 2014 or so, there was a really big shift across multiple entities in sports. And teams began to offer this 365-day membership, so that we're not just servicing our season ticket members during the season per se, but we also continue to have contact with them throughout the entire season. So it feels like a membership. Think golf membership, right? Think of other things that you get with something just besides going to the game. And that's where Anna's group and our group work together to say, okay, Amica is one of our partners. Well, being in front of them, let's do a season ticket holder barbecue in the off season. And that's really like sort of like the kickoff event for the season per se, where we target very specific people with respect to the barbecue, because it's a high valued event. It's held at Encore, the casino, on their lawn. And we generally go by tenure. So people that have been with us 30, 40, 50 years season ticket members actually get invited to this kind of thing. So we take care of a couple of things. Two things I want to bring up about member experience is, it took me a while to figure out, when I was developing the department, that you need to service both in tenure and about seat location. So sort of the niche is, you're supposed to service the people that spend the most money with you, right? And you can justify it, right? With a benefit. But think about this for a second. If you're a 30-year season ticket member and you've sat center court in the balcony for 30 years, and you have a 30-year season ticket holder that sit in between the baskets for 30 years, what do you think each of those perceived values are to them? It's the same. So just because that person's paying us less money doesn't mean that their money feels different to them, right? So you have to think about how they feel. So what I started to do is develop programs where you would get benefits for tenure, but you also would get benefits for where you sat. And that way we would cross-pollinate sort of the people that are 30-year members that are in the balcony to the 30-year members that might be in the loge. That's a huge perceived value, because once you mix those people, they start to tell the same stories. They start to talk about, were you there at this? And then you have the people that are sitting between the baskets that spend the most money. That's where corporate partnerships come in, right? Because they look for high-valued accounts, and that's where we would take an event and service by seat location, because we can tell them that the value in the room is $3 million, right? So having Amica put up 50,000 and then the Celtics put up 50,000, you now have an $100,000 event, right? And you can justify that by the spend in the room by $3 million. So there's really two ways that we service our member clients, and we do it all year long. We just don't do it during the season. The big thing that you want to make sure you're doing in service is consistency. You never want to feel like you're dipping and devaluing their value. You want to stay consistent so that they have a person that they can call. Doesn't matter when, right? It feels, when, you go to a place and you don't feel important, right? Just think in your everyday life, right? I think about my mechanic as an example. I'm not going to go in and tell them how to change spark plugs, right? They're the experts, right? So you got to think about how we service and you stay consistent. And if you stay consistent, even when the team is bad, that relationship is super important. And Anna actually didn't even touch on, but she worked in our VIP member experience team. And that person could call Anna anytime, 365 days a year, and just talk, right? And they do, trust me, right?
Doesn't mean I would answer, but yes, they will call you all the time.
So anyway, point being is that you don't want to devalue, because you service when you're good, because when you're bad on the court, it's too late, right? You got to establish that relationship from the very beginning and keep it consistent. Arena operations is my boring part of my job. On game day, I'm responsible for enforcing the NBA security standards, which relate to court protection, social interaction, any alerts that are done, working with Boston PD, evictions, ushers, guest services, parking. So that's how my day changes on game day. And I have just recently hired somebody under me to help me with that part of the job. And then Mike just mentioned, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, is I'm focusing more on the guest experience side. So the overall fan, what is it like coming in the building for the first time? How do we get that fan back? What's the retention rate on that single game buyer? Those are the things that I'm working with Mike on, surveying those people. How do we get more surveys in? How do we get more feedback? What's the pain points that they feel coming in for the first time? What's their experience on the ticket app? You name it, we're asking the question. The one thing I will say Mike's team does a really good job on is we don't ask questions that we should know the answer to, right? So birthdays is a perfect example, or knowing how many people are part of a ticket plan. The rep should know that. We're not asking Mike's group to try to figure that out, right? The rep has to put that information. That's on the rep to learn the business. Then it's Mike's teams looks at that data to start to decipher what those target groups are. So that's where my focus is this year. Shockingly, you'll probably be stunned by this, but of the single game people that actually come to the arena, only 18% come back in the same year. So that's a very low rate, and that's where our focus is. And people ask, like, where's your next money coming from? That's where we're going with that. Why aren't they coming back? What type of fan are they? And we're going to do a lot of analysis, and we're going to put a lot of effort into that. So pretty high-end stuff, but a lot of fun. And that's why people ask me, how come you're doing it for 29 years? It's because every year is pretty much different. So thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Mike, I'm going to take it back to you. I know you mentioned earlier you came over from EY to come and start, the business intelligence department there, and again, in sports, that again, even less than 10 years ago, that was an unheard of thing, and it still is in a lot of teams, depending on either the league you're working for, the team you're working for, et cetera. So, can you talk to us a little bit more about kind of team structure? Who's part of your team? What are their day-to-day responsibilities? I know you kind of oversight it a little bit, but just so everyone in here can kind of, get an idea of like, all right, I can start here, maybe, pivot to here, and then, kind of talk about some of the third-party software now that, you're specifically using. I'm going to ask you guys, the same thing, but ultimately, what do you, what's helping you in your day-to-day? And that could even be down to, since everyone loves the buzzwords of AI, they could be down to like a ChatGPT and how have you programmed that to be able to, do what you need to do. So I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I guess what team structure. So I guess when I first started, it was me, and I was kind of more of the data warehouse guy. That was kind of my focus. And there was someone running our CRM system, so we're on Salesforce now. And then my boss sits in a larger department, and he manages a larger department that's marketing operations and ticket operations. So we work very closely with both of those groups. So in terms of the business intelligence, I have 3 reports. One is kind of a ticketing focused, so they're really focused on our member experience, building out dashboards and reports that not only summarize how we're doing on a game-to-game basis for ticket sales, but also how are we servicing that kind of group of ticket holders. We have someone that's focused on sponsorships and social media, so reporting all the value that our partners are getting, but also how we're doing on strictly like a social media performance side. So diving into like Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok has been a big one recently. And then I have a third person that is kind of more of the data warehouse focused. She's also just incredibly smart. So she runs the back end of our email marketing system, make sure all the data gets where it needs to go. And she also does some hodgepodge reporting for us. And I think as like a larger kind of thing, to kind of touch on what Paul was saying with individual game buyer, like a great example of how our department looks at things is we have reporting looking at that 18% renewal for individual game buyers, like season over season. And a goal for us is to get that up 3-5 percentage points for this season. So we're working with Paul's team and trying to improve the customer experience to get people back, but then we're also working with our marketing ops team, saying who went last year, who hasn't gone this year. When did they buy? Were they a November buyer? And maybe they haven't come back yet. Maybe we're going to send them an email or push an ad to them, being like, hey, you were here last year, we missed you. So it's trying to get a little bit more targeted with how we're marketing to people, getting a little bit more efficient in how we're targeting people, and also trying to not spam people. Like, I don't think anyone really wants to be getting like tons of emails that are completely irrelevant to them. So trying to get more data points on what people are interested in. We're trying to do that through surveying, through just seeing like how they interact with us, both on the ticketing standpoint, but also on a digital standpoint, and then feeding a little bit more relevant content to them, trying to feed a little bit more relevant advertising to them. And in terms of, I guess, systems, so we use Tableau for dashboarding and reporting. So we have a whole like server that all those live on, and that's really nice because everyone can kind of log in. So like Paul and Anna have logins for that. And you can kind of see your suite of dashboards. It kind of puts data at fingertips of the people in the organization. We also have Salesforce for our CRM system. That's a switch we made a few years ago, and that's been really awesome. It's kind of allowed us to connect all of our different systems so that we can kind of send data all the different places, and it can help us automate and be a little bit more granular in how we're targeting individuals in our ecosystem. Another thing I just kind of wanted to say is like, as much as there's like a big emphasis on data, there's so many roles in the sports industry that aren't in like the analyzing data in that space. But I think what is really important is people's familiarity with it. So it's like, can you look at a number and kind of take that number and apply it to what it actually means in your role and in your business setting. I think just like the understanding and the familiarity with kind of those data analysis is really important, especially as the sports industry continues to develop, and I think kind of like catches up with other industries out there that are a little bit more ahead of the curve on the data front. And I guess, yeah, AI. We honestly, AI, it's still pretty new. I think there's a lot of companies that are trying to apply it in what they do. I think the biggest thing we've tried to use it for is trying to like automate tasks. So on the post-game survey example, you know, can we use ChatGPT? Can we feed in like open text responses that people are giving us feedback on? And can we apply a category to what they're talking about in that open text response? Can we apply a sentiment? Is it positive or negative? So that we can bubble up those issues if there are issues to Paul, or if there are wins that we're getting from these responses, like can we bubble up those to the relevant parties to make sure people know that they're doing a good job in their different areas? So I think that's the way we've tried to apply it so far. I think there's definitely a lot more to come with that, though.
Couldn't agree more. Before I jump over to Paul real quick, I know you mentioned CRM systems, and there may be some salespeople in here, may not. I mean, overall CRM. Just a quick 30 seconds. Why was the ultimate switch over to Salesforce? Where did you come from? Was it a Dynamics? Was it something else? Where did you come from? Why was the switch, and how has that impacted, again, just quickly, the 3 departments from sponsorships down to, you know, allow you guys to align those departments like we first spoke about?
Yeah, so we were on Dynamics before, which is like a Microsoft CRM solution. I think that the big switch is for us to have, a big focus for us is to connect all of our different systems. So a big thing in the data world is having data silos. So basically having a bunch of systems that aren't connected. And that was kind of our old setup. So under this umbrella, our email marketing solution and somewhat of our digital advertising solution is housed under the same umbrella as our CRM solution. So we can see, you know, our sales reps or corporate partnership reps, you know, reaching out to people on the CRM side in like a one-to-one communication, and then, you know, what emails have we sent them more from like a mass marketing communication, and we can kind of paint together like what communications have these people gotten, like what has what has been their touch points with us, what is their kind of customer journey with us. So I think that was a big driver of it, is just making sure we can connect all of our data points together. So we're really trying to build more of a holistic like 360 view of, you know, who all of our individual fans are.
Love that. Paul?
I think Mike sort of hit it on the head with the guest experience side of things. You know, for me, you know, it doesn't just start at the front door. It sort of starts in your driveway, and how you get there. Understanding, are you a walker because you live in the North End? Are you somebody that takes the T, so that I can go to the MBTA and say, hey, 20% of our attendees actually took the T, and try to improve that way. Excuse me. And then also taking some of that data to figure out, you know, what's important to them, and taking the data like what did they, you know, what did they rate low as an example. So we actually were in a meeting yesterday, and we were looking at our dashboard through our first 5 games for individual buyers that returned our survey, and the number one dissatisfied topic was food and beverage. And when you take a look at whatever the number was, I think it was like 75 accounts or something, it's not just about price. It's not just because you go to the garden and you pay 20 bucks for a Bud Light. It's about selection. It's about diet. I need gluten-free options. I'm celiac, allergy. I have, you know, more, you know, where are the vegetable options? Those types of things are what comes into our data warehouse. And this is where Mike and I were talking yesterday, is like, how do we take that data, because it's our number one issue, and we slice it and flip that to the TD Garden to say, how do we change that? And then the other part to that is, you know, experience in the restroom. You'd think, wow, that's kind of really strange, but it's important to people, right? Cleanliness, making sure there's no water on the floor, housekeeping's doing their job, evaluating that. So there's a lot of different ways that we can slice data in terms of what's important to people. And then it's not always about what's bad. You also want to know what's good. And I think that's sometimes when you look at data, you look for the bad things first and not necessarily the things that you're doing well. And I think that's really important when, when your teachers are talking about topics, right? Think about like, okay, I need improvement here, but what are we doing right? I know the events group's gonna be taking notes the entire day today. What went well today? What didn't go well? What do we wanna change for next year? I already can see the difference year over year, and I think Dan probably could second this, is, he was even talking about like, what's next year, number 3. But that's what I look at things, like I look at like minute things that, like for example, like pulling in the driveway today. I was looking like, that I didn't see one sign except for a tiny sign that said Lot J of where to park. And yes, Brian sent me that note to park in J, but if I've never been to the campus before and I have a map, but it wasn't circled where J was and where my space was, because I got there before the students did, and I didn't know where to go. So like things like that I look at, and I'm probably like a little like OCD a bit about how to get better at things, but putting signage out, putting things like how do we get better, what does a day look like, that's what I'm looking at. I don't know how many of you have been to the TD Garden in the last year or so? Okay, what's different about the entrance? What's different about the entrance to the
By the
building?
way, sorry, I was not expecting that. That's a huge amount. So,
What's different about the entrance? Somebody tell me. Yeah. What else? Anyone else?
Can I chime in?
Go ahead, Anna.
do it.
The back, I'm assuming you're alluding to the back policy changing. So now when you walk into TD Garden, previously you'd notice massive lines to get in. Now, because the bags aren't allowed, it's actually a system that does it for you. So it speeds up the process of walking in, which Paul's responsible for, getting our fans in quickly, and hopefully they're more excited, not as frustrated by the process. So things like that.
It's called frictionless, and anyone that leaves here should definitely look up Evolve Technology. That's the name of the company. Basically, you're walking through and not having to take anything out of your pockets. It'll alarm in certain areas and look at you. We put you in a different line if you alarm. If you don't, you're going to keep walking straight through and get your ticket scanned, and you're going to go right into the building. It has improved our throughput by 30%. So you can actually come to the game and show up 5 minutes before the game and get through the line and not wait 20, 25 minutes in the line.
I mean, that was the fun of the garden. But all right, Anna, I'm going to have you jump into team structure, tools of the day, and just kind of some of the software that you may be using to help yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for us, it's important. We work year-round with our partners to ensure that they're receiving their return on investment. And I don't work with Jess often, but New Balance is a huge partner of ours. They have tons of great initiatives in the community, along with our junior Celtics programming. So she probably sees a lot of the work that Mike puts together in the dashboards, in our recaps. So it takes us, at the end of the year, what happens essentially is each rep who manages a partner sits down and puts together a deck. That deck could vary from 10 pages if it's a smaller partner to 100 plus pages if it's a large partner like New Balance. So we take the time to basically dive deep into every single number, every single performance. We want to make sure everything looks great before we have the meeting with our partner to go over it. So think about a presentation that you put together here. We do that annually with all of our partners. We sit down in a room, we go slide by slide, allowing the partner to ask any questions, to talk about the things that are working, and sometimes things aren't. So we work and talk through the conversations of pivoting. So Tableau, Mike's reporting is huge. I'm not a numbers person. I can look at the number and I can deliver the information. Luckily, I don't have to put it together. Thanks, Mike. So that kind of shows the importance of data, but not everyone needs to be a data-driven person as long as you're able to understand the numbers and be able to present it to whoever you're speaking with. We use a lot of different softwares as well. In order to be able to track all of the assets each partner has, it's important for us to have something that keeps it all together and we can close it out as the season goes along. Imagine starting the year with thousands of assets that you have to close out and not being able to keep track of what you've done, what you haven't done. It can get very overwhelming. We used to use Excel. Thanks to Mike, we have now a system that does it for us. They worked over the last 2 years, I would say, to develop something that we can go in, we can actually enter how much things cost, where we are in the process, what game it took that it occurred at. And hopefully by the end of the year, if all the reps are doing it correctly, you go from thousands of assets to zero. So it's a great opportunity for myself to know the work that I've put in. It feels good, right? You have this huge, huge thing that you're working on, and then at the end of the year, it's resolved, it's completed, so it feels good, but it also helps us track, and you can say, oh, we're ending on the season, and I still have 10 things to do. How can I get them done? Our team itself, we are pretty small but mighty, I'd say. We have a director, we have 3 managers, and then each manager has a senior coordinator. So the coordinator works with the manager to kind of in tandem support the partnerships. And then we have a strategy team. So our strategy team is basically more aligned of the data analytics and support part. So when we have questions on performance, plans, marketing plans, we work with them very closely to come up with solutions or some of that reporting. Each team is, different, so how we're structured might not be the same as someone else is structured. But I think we have a pretty well-oiled machine. I think we've gotten better. We're continuing to get better, and technology helps us with that.
I've actually to jump in. There's so much that goes into partnerships that Anna has to manage and keep track of. So we're providing data on TV exposure during broadcasts. It's all social media tracking. There's so many different parts that goes into a partnership, and that's not even talking about the actual activation and managing the relationships and everything like that. We track sentiment and brand across our fan base. So there's a ton that goes into partnerships. And we've worked really closely over the last few years to really make sure that value is being provided. But I wasn't super familiar with the partnership realm before I started in sports, and it's been continually depressed me just how much they manage on their end.
And you guys are gonna walk away today information overload. You probably, sitting in class, don't even think or realize how many different roles, responsibilities there are in a brand, in a professional sports team. Honestly, the opportunities are endless, and there's probably a role that you will be a perfect fit for. So just remain open-minded, have conversations, ask people questions. I'm learning in my role every day. There's always something new coming up. There's always something changing. Don't, be startled by all that we do. We've been in the industry for a long time. I started in ticket sales, making 100 calls a day and getting told 95 times, some not very nicely. So don't be discouraged. It takes time. As long as you continue to put in the effort and you have your mindset on what you want to do, I think that's what's going to get you to sitting here 10 years from now.
I actually want to come back to that and ask another question, but Paul, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I'm cutting you off because we're going to run out of time. But just really quick, team structure on, I know you talked on the operations side, you mentioned kind of all the roles there, but just really specifically on the membership experience, what other, roles are in that department? So 60 seconds, go.
Okay, really quick. There are two, there's one manager that kind of oversees everything, both VIP and member experience, so two different departments within one. Our VIP department is responsible for the people feet on the floor and in the first three rows along the sidelines and in between the baskets. So that's one group. There's three of those folks that are part of VIP, which Anna was part of one. And then the other group services the rest of our accounts, which is another 4,000 accounts. They roughly have a book of business of 500 accounts each. Their job is to retain, invite them to events, and interact with them throughout the entire season. And their goal is to retain those. So they're financially tied to those accounts. So that's on the member experience side. And we basically exploded in 2008. Our season ticket base grew by 40%, and we've sort of been there since 2008. So our numbers are roughly about the same, about 14,000 tickets, our season ticket members. What was that, Dan? 60 seconds.
That was actually, a little over, but you're pretty spot on. So I'm actually going to have you start first on this one. So Anna was talking about all of the different roles, all the opportunities. I know I mentioned creativity earlier, kind of think outside the box. So this one I'll give 2 minutes for each of you because we do have to roll through the questions. But so what are the next roles that you think are becoming more prevalent? How can we translate, again, since we're ultimately here for the students, how can we translate future classes and curriculum? This is, again, more so for you and me being on the board and looking at how we can continue to take steps forward for the program. What do you think the next roles and what's becoming more prevalent outside of what, before it literally was just you get in by ticket sales or you get in by marketing or an internship in some department. And now there's just a lot of more opportunities. So where do you see that going in 2 minutes, go?
So I think that's a loaded question, and depending on which organization you're talking about, and what sport you're talking about. I would say for the NBA, 2014, it was about breaking the mold of the news sale was more important than retaining your customer. So that kind of shifted in 2014, where service departments started to pop up. Member experience executive roles popped up in 2014. Then we started to get into sort of the technology world of mobile barcoding and tracking people of, in terms of who emailed tickets to someone else, and then finding out who your customer is. I personally think that Mike's department, in terms of business intelligence, the focus is always about being smarter. And I think that's the other part to this, is I think data is going to be a big part of where we go in the future, because it's all on the phone right now. And I was even talking to my landscaper about, do we put a Wi-Fi adapter outside because that's where everyone likes to be, right? And so I just think everything is going to gravitate towards the phone. I think the app development, there's an app for everything type of thing, is, for me, that's been the challenging part, is like, what's the next company that's building an app that's going to help us make more money? And I think that's where professional sports teams, they always look for where the next $1 million is, or the next $2 million, or the next $3 million, whether it's in corporate partnership, or whether it's in ticket sales, or it's in the client that's actually coming to the game. That's where I believe things are going to really kind of explode in the next probably 5 to 10 years.
I'm going to jump over to you, Anna, and we'll end with Mike. Where do you think, the next roles, how can we, continue to build curriculum to provide the value?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as you guys heard, data is important. Everyone wants to see numbers. Everyone wants to see how things are performing. It kind of is a representation of the work. So you've probably seen social media, graphic design, content has changed. Like, we're doing research to figure out that your generation is not watching something that's 2 minutes long. We lose them at 30 seconds. So we're making adjustments to shoot shorter content. So there's a lot of different avenues from my perspective where the industry is growing in parallel with data. So there's gonna continue being roles in each department. At the end of the day, what organizations are looking for, they're looking for hard workers, people who are team players, and someone who's gonna give it 110%. So, and they can teach you the other things, right? We all didn't develop skills we have today on day one. Yeah, you might be interested in data and you're a better fit on Mike's team, but you could be a great relationship builder and you could be fantastic for Paul's team. So I think as technology gets better, as things change, we still have to continue being hardworking people to be able to succeed in those roles and continue your relationship managing, networking. If I hadn't met Paul in my internship when I came in, deer in headlights, didn't know how to drive to Boston, didn't know where to park, like where to go, all frazzled. If he didn't give me a chance because he knew that I was showing up every day and I was still a Nichols student and I was driving from Dudley for my internship and leaving it when the games ended at 12 a.m. because I was committed and I knew that that's what it was gonna take, I wouldn't be here today. So I think it is important to build those relationships, and thank you, Paul, and maintain them and show up every day. That's really what it takes, no matter where the path forward is, because at the end of the day, the person that's hiring you is gonna teach you what you need to know for that role.
Couldn't agree more. Mike, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm actually going to piggyback off of something Anna said. So I think really where the big growth is going to be is like digital marketing and content over the next few years. So if you think about like a sports team, there's a finite number of games and there's a finite number of seats in the arena. And we have some crazy sellout streak. It's like 200 something games, but we're kind of
254.
There you go. Yeah.
Of course you would know that number. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's like we're kind of tapped out in that space of the business. We don't own our arena, so it's like, where can we grow our revenue pool? And to me, that's really content. So our like digital marketing content team, the people producing our social media reports, people who are producing the long form videos that go out on YouTube, that team has grown so much over the last few years. And if you want to think, like, the NBA has a big emphasis in growing the global audience. And again, like, a lot of those fans can't come to games. So how are they going to interact with us as a brand? How are they going to kind of consume us as a brand? Like, that's going to be all online through content. I also just think sports is kind of in a unique space in the content sphere, where it's kind of one of the last things that's organic. You know, there's so much content out there. A lot of it's produced, a lot of it is kind of framed in a way. But when you're going and watching a sporting event, like, you don't know what's going to happen. It could be a blowout, and it could be a terrible game to watch. It could be, you know, double overtime thriller where, you know, someone scores like 60 points. So there's that element of you know, not being produced, being a little bit more organic and authentic that I think differentiates it. So I think that's really where there's going to be, you know, so much growth and so much emphasis in the sports world. And I guess in my area specifically, just the digital space of that, I think a lot more teams are bringing data in-house and wanting to kind of control and maintain their data in order to kind of build, again, like a little bit more tailored content to people. So I think it's all kind of going in that digital space, but obviously can't lose sight of the fans that are in our market and coming to our games, because those are our most important fans for sure.
And just, sorry, one thing to add, a lot of these things you can learn from your professors. You can ask them. There's certificates you can get online that are sometimes free. So there's a lot of opportunities to gain other knowledge just by being vigilant and looking into other avenues. So I'd encourage you guys to, if it's following social for specific teams or brands, or if you see something on LinkedIn that you could maybe sign up for or take a quick course or whatever the case may be, talk to your professors, ask them what they think is valuable or what access and opportunities Nichols has. That is something that's already going to be differentiating you from others.
Before I jump into the next question, I'm going to kind of talk about some of the roles I've had and how it's transitioned away from sports, but still kind of stayed in sports because we've just talked about new roles. I know we've focused kind of more directly just on the team itself, Celtics, TD Garden, etc. So for me, it's next question is I'm going to end up starting with you because you come from outside sports as well, and I know he's lived in that world, from the beginning. So next question before I jump in is going to end up being difference between the sports industry and other industries and kind of what the big difference is, not just on a day-to-day, but overall interaction. And for me, again, went from Celtics, Dolphins, Marlins, worked 10 plus years in that. And I've always still had that love for sports and that interaction of sports, and I didn't want that to go away. But was kind of sick of the team side because I either had to move away from Miami and go to a team in the middle of nowhere to get the role I wanted to get, or stay in Miami and find a new kind of career and love. And I've always wanted to get back into technology, innovation, analytics, and ultimately, but still stay on the sales side. So where I'm at now, it's allowed me, and the reason I'm saying all this, guys, is like it's allowed me again to stay integrated with sports. But where I'm at now, it's a ground transportation technology company. It's not, on paper, it's not sexy. It's not something you think you're going to want to do. But at the end of the day, it started as chauffeur service, and now it's moved into global ground logistics, where we do major events. We're in the process. The Latin Grammy is going on, and this is being recorded, whatever. Latin Grammy is going on right now down in Miami. We're currently the ones that have been handling the entire ground coordination for the last week and a half, going into tomorrow night. On the sports side, I oversee our sales and partnerships, but the accounts that I personally am overseeing and I deal with on a day-to-day, along with my account coordination team, are my sports accounts. Just coming from that space and having those relationships, we've done everything from the MLB All-Star game in Denver a few years ago. We managed all of the coordination from the minute they landed at the FBOs to the minute that they left, and everything in between. We do on a day-to-day right now. The G League, just started. We manage a handful of their team's transportation on a bus standpoint. Maine Celtics are actually our client, so we handle all of their transportation around the country, and with the team of 3 up there. So it still allows me to have that connection, I guess, in a sense, to sports, and it allows me to be at these events, but see it from a different landscape, see it from a different scope. I'm now a supplier, I'm now a vendor, and now I'm looking at arenas and stadiums in a very different way. I'm dealing with people like Paul on a regular basis, along with our group and events team, because we need to go in, understand security, we need to go understand the logistics, where if we're doing private transportation for a celebrity, all right, where is that side entrance? How are you going to do this? What's the drop off look like? If it's team transportation, completely different thing. So it's really looking at it's allowed me to take my operation side out and my love for how can we come in, look at what the situation, what the scope is, and create efficiencies, create different kind of workthroughs and solutions to say, all right, how can we move this quicker? How can we be more data driven? How can we do this? And ultimately, yes, my role is sales and all of that, but because of how quickly it was the 7th employee that joined, we're at 85 now. So it's it's how in the sense of growing, it's allowed me to kind of see the company from a different landscape, but also still again have that love for sports. So going back to that question, I'll allow you to kind of talk about, because again, I don't want you guys to be pigeonholed and hey, I have to work for a sports team, because that's what it was when I graduated. It was either you went and worked for the league or you worked for the sports team, or maybe an agency. And now you've got the brands like New Balance. Now you've got the companies out there that are, you have like Wasabi is a technology company. I know that they have specific people that work for them just that handle their sports branding and partnerships and everything else. So there's other avenues out there, and don't think so pigeonholed.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess two things I'm going to piggyback off of that. So I guess really the difference between the sports industry and kind of other industries in my mind are, like you just said, like you love sports. People identify themselves with specific teams in sports. So it's like, I'm a Celtics fan. Like you don't have a lot of people saying like, I'm a Gillette shave person, or I identify with this product. It becomes a part of your identity, and because of that, you market to them so differently than you would in a different industry. So I think that's kind of like the weird niche part of the sports industry. I also think that is one of the things that makes the sports industry fall behind, is that it is a little bit easier to engage with your fans. So I think the sports industry generally lags behind, at least in data, and I think in a lot of other business innovation because of that. But I think it is catching up with that, especially with how big entertainment and content is in the modern day. And then also just like getting into sports and like, maybe not starting out in the sports industry. I think if you look for things that are translatable, skills that are translatable, that should be like your biggest focus, especially early on in your career. I always tell people just like have a North Star of like, where do you want to go in your career? And when you're trying to navigate, taking different roles or even working on different things within a company that you're at, like, is that getting you closer to the kind of that North Star? So like I started very much not in the sports industry. I had no roles or projects at UI that were related to sports, but I was building up skill sets and like knowing how to use SQL, knowing how to build visualizations, like building like the ground level skills that I ultimately applied to the sports job that I ended up getting. Plus there are tons of companies out there that aren't a sports team that are working in the sports industry. Like New Balance is like kind of sports adjacent, and you get to work with sports teams and partnering with them a lot of times and working with athletes. We use a bunch of different vendors that provide us data, and they employ just tons and tons and tons of people. So there are definitely opportunities out there to work for, not necessarily sports teams, but still be in the sports industry. And when you're in kind of that larger industry, it is a lot easier to jump to a team if that's something you want to do.
And just to touch on, before I jump to Paul, touch on that North Star, again, that North Star can get adjusted, guys. Like, you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you have no idea what the hell you want to do right now. Some of you do, some of you don't, some of you think you do. For me, I thought I was going to be in sports, team level, league level for 40 years, 50 years, going to retire in the sunset and be happy. And, now I'm in, travel and technology and everything else, and that's opened my eyes to a whole new world of, it's boring at parts of the time, but procurement and travel management and working directly for a company, like, and managing those programs, building those programs out in a travel sourcing side of things. So for me, it's allowed me to shift my North Star of my love for sports. Yes, now that's more recreational. Now it's going into what my true love has always been in that business, that technology, that innovation, that data, and getting into that space and continuing that space. So my North Star has now gone from that sports into, all right, how do I stay in travel and technology for the next 20, 30 years, within different companies or, with the same company, and, how can I build those solutions but still be involved with my love of sports? So, Paul, I know, let me just look at time because I want to get questions in. So we'll give a minute each, and then we'll go on to the next one. So, just different between sports industry, other industry, quick minute.
I just think, I guess for me, it's like different from game to game, I would say, because I didn't think that last Friday, that I would get a call on Wednesday that the CEO of TikTok is coming, and we have to go and do 3 walkthroughs with their security team before that person got there. And then, not last year, the year before that, Kate and William came to a Celtics game. That was 4 rehearsals with the State Department and Secret Service. And so I would say that, like, for me, it was like an eye-opening experience that I'm actually working with Homeland Security, Secret Service, FBI, and doing my job. the NBA obviously is a global entity, and they do a really good job of bringing celebrities to games. And some of our biggest fans are celebrities. And I think I would have never thought that the security side of things would bring me that close to certain group of people. And yeah, is it hard to not be awestruck and like, yeah, those are some pretty legit people. But at the end of the day, they're people. Like, and they want to be treated the way, you know, some are great and some, you know, just let their security team do their thing. But know that that is also part of sports too, is the security part. If criminal justice interests you, there's a lot of former police officers, a lot of former FBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security folks that actually run private security companies for celebrities and VIPs.
Thank you, Brian. Just real quick before Anna jumps in, do we have a mic? I'm going to do a couple of quick questions. Fabulous. Love that. All right, go ahead.
So I think for myself, I've only worked in sports, but through my current position, I've realized that the companies that I work with have a me, but for them. So the way I think about it is my contact at Duncan, right? They're not in sports, but they're doing what I'm doing for Duncan, which revolves around sport. So be open-minded. Don't, I think as the guys said, don't, if it's something that you really want to do, absolutely, you'll persevere, you'll get there. Keep trying, keep working hard. But if you're open to other ideas, there's tons of different opportunities beyond sport that might be a great fit.
All right, let's jump into a couple of quick questions, and then we'll leave it with final thoughts. Who want any questions? Hands up. Come on, there's 150 in you. Come on. None. All right, there we go. We got one. Cool. Microphone up front. Oh, she up front, right? Over here. There we go. Thank you. If anybody else doesn't have a question, I'm just going to pick on someone, so we're going to have some fun.
Hypothetically, if you could go back to when you were freshly out of college, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself regarding your future career path?
That is a fabulous question. Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Mike.
I would say just try and be as patient as possible, while also balancing kind of what your worth is. So like coming out of school, like even panels like this, like a lot of times people come in and it's like they got to some crazy position in like 5 years, 6 years, and it's like you're seeing like the most successful people in the industry. For like 98% of people, like that's not going to be the case, and companies, businesses generally move slow. So I think just have a level of patience. I think I was really like, itching to get out there and like, do all this stuff and like move up and all these different things. And what I've realized is a lot of times if you don't maybe, jump ship from a company when things get frustrating the first time or maybe even the second time, the patience does pay off, and people do see a value in loyalty. But at the flip side, like if you're really like getting screwed and roll, don't stick around. Like know your worth, but also like try and be patient. Understand that things move slowly, and that if you do like really put in hard work, put in effort, you're smart about your role, you try and learn as much as you can, like that will pay off.
I would say.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think I would say just spend more time understanding the industry and what opportunities there are. Had I maybe had more conversations when I was a senior with folks that worked in the industry and other departments, I might have not started in ticket sales making 120 calls a day. Maybe I would have had other relationships. I would have understood that I didn't have to start there. So I think it's important to spend the time understanding how the businesses operate and not almost overachieving, applying for those things that you might think you're not going to have the qualifications for, because it takes a conversation, and maybe that conversation leads to a job. I think for myself, I was like, I'm determined to get into sports, and the best way to do that is through inside sales. Dan, get me a job. And that's what I did, and you know, and to Mike's point, it took a while to kind of end up where I am, but it could have been a little bit different had I maybe was more patient, did my research, met more people, and spend more time understanding the industry.
Paul, do you want to go, or?
Just 10 seconds. I would just say the people that are sitting beside you are your enemies.
So cruel. All right. Well, I'm not going to end it on that one.
No, you know what I'm saying, though. Basically, you're all competing for the same thing, essentially, right? We talked about the different roles, but no one's going to give it to you. And the thing that stood out to Dan, you know, for me with Dan and Anna, and why I selected them, is they were the unicorns. They were the people that interviewed well. I knew that I didn't have to teach work ethic, and they're going to do really, really well. And so that's what it takes to make it. And so what I'm getting at is, like, just always keep that in the back of your mind. Someone's willing to work harder than you.
I think very, very true. And Mike kind of stole mine. I think patience is probably the biggest thing for me as well. I would, just coming out of college, it was like, all right, how fast can I do this? What can I do this? How can I do this? But again, it was back in the day when really was the only way to get into sports was if you were willing to go be, just a grinder and, make the 100 calls a day. That's what it was. Or the internship, which back in the day, which you guys don't have to deal with now, is unpaid internships. When I worked for the Celtics, it was unpaid. I just got credits. So, and I think the year after is when it got changed. So for me, patience is probably the biggest thing, and just allowing things to happen and life to happen for the reason that it's happening. But take the skills, take the values and everything else that we kind of not just gathered here at like Nichols, but in our lives with families and friends and everything else. Taking away Paul's comment on enemies, but at the end of the day, I think taking all those experiences and just allowing your passions to actually kind of call where you want to go. And for me, my biggest thing with my parents and I know my wife's parents, like it was a regimented thing. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. My dad was an actuary. He wanted me to become an actuary. I went and got an accounting degree in spite of that, and I'm never going to use that accounting degree. So for me, it's I think just allowing you to actually be you and find out what you want to do and have the patience to let it grow to that instead of forcing it to that. Because once you start forcing, that's usually where things kind of go to shit. So, yep. Any other questions? We got one there, and then we can end it on that because I know Brian's probably giving me the stink eye somewhere.
What is the most rewarding part of the job for you all?
Well,
Tonight.
I think being a part of a championship team is the ultimate reward. Honestly, it makes me a little bit emotional because I feel like we've all invested so much tears, sweat, hard work into our jobs that being able to hold that trophy, be on that duck boat, see the sea of people that come out to support the team, really is the true payback of what we do, right? If it wasn't for the front office of the organization, there would be a game, right? There hypothetically would be a game, but it wouldn't be to the level that it is because of the people that work internally to make everything run. And there's really nothing better in my life. I don't have kids, I'm not married, so hopefully one day there's better things, more memorable than winning a championship and being on that duck boat. But ultimately, I think in my career, that's been the highlight.
Yeah, I would say honestly, just like the little moments, and really like doing it for the fan base. Like I grew up loving sports, and like the reason why I want to go into the sports industry were all those moments where I was at a game with my family, with my dad, with my mom, with my siblings, and just having an incredible experience that I'm still remembering today. So I think for me, it's like doing it. Putting on the best event possible for the fans. So you're building those experiences. And at the end of the day, like a sports team, I'm a big believer that belongs to the community. We're just kind of stewards and passing it along to the next generation. So it's like, how can we improve this for the people that are here right now and continue to pass that along for the future. So I think that's the most rewarding part of it for me.
I'll be real quick. My favorite part actually is going to be tonight seeing Mike and Anna's face when they get their ring. I know that was really special for me the first time getting it, and so for me, it's going to be seeing their faces tonight as they get handed their ring.
We have to go crash the party. I think rewarding, like they mentioned, I do think it's hard to answer that on just a one specific thing. I really do think it is the moments, the experiences that the job allows you. And just, we live in a very digital world where everything's just now recorded instead of living in the moment and enjoying it. So I think it really just comes down to those, to where now we can be those old people that we used to make fun of when we're 80 and, tell the stories of what we used to do. So I think it's, I really think they encapsulate that well. I think it's just about the moments and experiences. And we had one more question and we're done, so Brian doesn't. Where are we at? It was back right somewhere. There we go.
What was the most important connection you made early on in your career?
That's a good question. Paul, you can go first.
Okay, so I think it was at UMass, and I just got to know all my professors really, really well. I was a BC student. I was not an A student, to be honest. I had to take a lot of notes. And when I didn't really understand something, I always write down the time in the lecture that the professors had said something that I did not understand. And then I went to office hours and I said, by the way, you said this at 9:25 during this day, and this was the topic. I had no idea what you meant by that at all. And at that point, the professor knew that I was serious about being in that class. What that led to was all my professors knowing what kind of student I was, and I ended up being on the UMass Sport Management Advisory Board as a student to select 2 new professors for the department. And that led to a recommendation by the dean of the Sport Management Department for the Celtics internship.
I'm happy to jump in. I think for me it was Tim. Tim, thank you. I think he understood my abilities before I did, and he really encouraged me to aim for that star before I thought I could. And I think it's important to surround yourself with those people who see your potential sometimes before you do. So I credit a lot of my experience and where I am today because of him, because he told me, hey, don't settle, keep trying, you're gonna land at the right place and it's gonna get you somewhere special. So I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here today and be a part of your award. So thank you for all the work that you've put in and all your effort for the students, because looking back at it now, I understand. So thank you so much.
I'll wrap it up. So I interned at the Charlotte Hornets when I was in college, and my supervisor there, I knew I was moving to Boston. My supervisor there put me in contact with someone at the Celtics, and I just did. It was like someone in the marketing department. She's no longer there, but did an informational interview with her, and she ended up posting on LinkedIn about the job that I ended up getting at the Celtics. So I just doing that informational interview ended up being just so pivotal in my career. So I hate networking. I'm just like, I think it's so uncomfortable, but I've kind of forced myself to do it throughout my career, and it actually does pay off. So that's like a big thing, like just leverage your teachers here, leverage people you meet in the industry, definitely try and talk with different people, because I do think that really, it does pay dividends.
And then I'm gonna echo everything Anna said. Honestly, my first one was Tim as well. I was a massive introvert, coming into college, massive. Paul, why are you laughing, asshole? But it's now, I mean, doing something like this, I would have been like, nah, you can see me in Chamois. So for me coming in, the biggest reason I came to there was two reasons I came to the college. One was Tim, and then one was our tennis coach, Paul. He worked in admissions at the time, wanted to play tennis, and those were two main reasons. Biggest reason with Tim was, again, his energy, his willingness to help, his willingness to actually sit down and get to know you as a human and be able to help mold you into, again, what Anna said, what he feels is, where your strengths are and can help with, those weaknesses. So, I mean, it didn't hurt that, me being a tennis guy, I heard that he worked at the USTA, knew Billie Jean King and all that, so I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So ultimately, it allowed me to go from, a very introverted person freshman year to, I wouldn't say much, I would say an extreme extrovert, but an extrovert to where, it allowed me to move to Miami with no family, no friends, no nothing, and just kind of see what happened. I wouldn't have done that, prior to that. So ultimately, it's allowed me to now go out and, I teach on, how to network properly, what signs to go out, how to look for, the certain signals of, who to talk to, how to talk to them, the active listening portion of it. Like, we grade people at our company, and one of the first things that we do on our annual reviews is how is their active listening internally in the company, externally with their clients, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it's allowed me to build a network I truly cherish, because now, whether it's in sports, at a team, with companies, I'm one phone call away from a lot of what Paul would say pretty important people, to where it's at my age, it's humbling. So I think being able to allow yourself to change and do that 180 and see the benefits of it, which someone like Tim allowed me to do, I think is pivotal. So. All right, Brian, where are you at? Good? All right, let's thank Paul, Mike, and Anna. Thank you so much for coming up here. Appreciate it, guys. All right, I don't know if Brian is coming up, but again, we've got the panels coming up. We're going to start here. I know we started this panel about 10 minutes late, and I know, Brian's coming up and giving me a face. All right, so I know we started 10 minutes late. I do want to, allow you guys the opportunity, if you want to come up, ask questions, meet Paul, Mike, Anna, please come up. So we're probably, 10:55, would you say, instead? 10 or 11? What do you want to do?
Well, yeah, so if you have questions for the Celtics folks, just stay. If you're going to your next panel, that starts at 10:45.
Okay.
Just head to either Fells or Davis. Obviously, that'll start a little bit late. That's fine, not a big deal. But stay here if you want to talk to these guys, or head to Fells or Davis.
See you guys soon. Thanks.